So yesterday, Chrystia Freeland, who is our finance minister as well as the deputy prime minister, she said that she's going to announce something about the housing affordability at her economic fall statement next week. And she said supply is the only problem we have with regards to housing crisis in this country. And I have a different view, and I'm going to share this with you in this video, so stick around. Okay, let's assume for the sake of argument that supply is the problem here. I know the supply is, to some extent, it's a problem, but it's not the only problem when it comes to housing affordability. Let me explain. So let's go back to 2020 and 2021, right? We have seen the biggest bull run in the housing market in 2020 and 2021, right? Even though it was across the world, but Canada was at a completely different level. We have seen the biggest demand explosion in the housing market. And what was the primary driver of that demand? Think about that. It's the access to the cheap capital, right? So the interest rate were historic low, pretty much at 0%. The financing conditions were very relaxed. Every single person who was trying to get the mortgage was easily qualifying for it. This has driven the demand through the roof. What happened with the pricing? The prices have also gone through the roof because the extraordinary demand. This was not a pent-up demand, guys, okay? So don't fall for that. This was an artificially created inflated demand by using monetary policy. So who created this demand? It's the commercial bank. Commercial banks were actually extending credit exponentially. They're creating new money, printing new money that is being pumping the asset bubbles like real estate, right? So it's the artificially inflated demand created by commercial banks that has increase the housing prices in 2020-21, right? And in the last 12 months, since 2020 February all the way to now, we are seeing the table has completely turned, right? The momentum has completely shifted. Why? Because we have seen the most aggressive rate hiking cycle in the history that has completely collapsed the demand, right? So what happened to the demand? The demand is gone because the buyers don't have access to the cheap capital anymore, right? The rates have gone up to 6.5%. The financing conditions are much tighter, right? The credit is shrinking rather than extending. So you understand that, there is a demand side of the equation that a lot of people completely ignore it. A lot of people just talk about supply. Supply is the only problem. No, it's the demand side of the equation that you have to understand, right? If you see an explosion in demand, that means something is going wrong. Why we're seeing this explosion in the demand? Even right now, there are some buyers in the market. Who are those buyers? Those buyers are the genuine buyers who like to purchase real estate for their own shelter, not the investor class. Back then, it was the investor class who were accumulating real estate because it was so easy to acquire capital by leveraging your existing asset, taking heat out against that, and use that as a down payment to accumulate new real estate. Okay, that was the phenomenon that was going on in 2020 and 2021. Now that investor class is completely wiped out. Why? Because the numbers are not making sense. The rental income is not able to cover the interest, the expenses, the taxes, and wear and tear of the property. Okay, so as an investor, you have to think about it. If I'm going to purchase an investment property, is it going to cover my expenses? If not, it's a liability, it's not an asset. So that's why all the investor class has completely gone. Buyers right now available in the market are the genuine buyers. So imagine if the buyers available in the market are only genuine buyers, we don't have this supply issue. Think about that, right? So supply is, yes, to some extent is an issue because we are growing the population as well. But there's a lot of demand side destruction and expansion happening through these monetary credit cycles. And that needs to be addressed as well. It's not just the supply. It's the demand side of the things as well, which completely people ignore that. Especially the major economists as well. They completely ignore that piece. And even if we consider the supply side, supply is created by the private sector, the home builders, right? They are the private corporations. They have P&L. They have to provide return on their investment to their shareholders. So they will only take on these projects if it is making sense financially. In an environment where the interest is so expensive, all of these projects got canceled in the last 12 months, right? If the numbers are not making sense, if the maths doesn't work, these builders will not produce any more products. So think about that. The supply is not easy to build. In order for supply to flourish, you have to have an environment where it can incentivize those builders to create more rental units. Now they're coming up with different policies which could incentivize these builders to create these rental units by taking our advantage on the HST side. But it's too little too late, guys, right? It's going to take another 3 to 5 years before we see that excess inventory come into the market. So all of this, housing affordability narrative, that it's a political statement, guys. It's not going to change anytime soon. Even though if they start doing something about it, it's going to take 3 to 5 years before we see the real impact in the market. So all of this is political theater. They're just making these statements to get some votes for the election, but it's not going to change things overnight. Okay, and think about the dynamics from the demand side as well. It's not just the supply, it's the demand that is also going to affect the prices, whether this is expanding or being crushed as a result of these credit cycles. And in the end, I always blame the banks, the commercial banks, the lenders who actually control this whole expansion and contraction of the money supply, which fuels these asset bubbles like real estate in Canada. Anyway, this is just me ranting all around. So you let me know what you think. Put your comments down below. If you like this video, give me a thumbs up, and I'll see you in my next video. Thank you.